air compressor.
Yep, it's right here. Plug that in. Do you have a short auto eject now? You do. And how do you let them come out? Do you yank them out?
No, you
let them fire.
They go
okay.
out.
Well, that's because a lot of people like to pull them out before they get in the cab. That doesn't let that spring exercise. What it does, it fires with no load on it. Plug them in. Now remember that the Kussmaul is only designed to provide service air for response. It is not designed to overcome an air leak.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If the thing keeps running, you're in the firehouse and you hear that Kussmaul, you got an air leak. Okay. That is typically not a warranted item. These compressors are for short term, 3 minutes on to keep your pressure up. Guys will sit there and go by them and say, gee, that thing's always running. Well, that means you got an air leak. You need to fix it. They're not there. They don't have the capacity to overcome, if they're running every 5, this thing, for all intents and purposes.
They can.
Here, have some turkey days. There's always a possibility of some little leak through the system. It should be not rare, but it should be on. You shouldn't hear it. So, like you got a meeting night, that thing's going off every 5 minutes. You got an air leak. You need to get that found. Okay, and of course, battery chargers down. You got a compartment here. When we built the steps, we had to take up the space. And you've got the same thing on the other side. Okay, on your pump control panel, you're going to engage it in the cab. Okay, when you engage it, when those lights aren't on, this middle light comes on automatically. So you get 2 green lights in the cab. This light. We do this so the pump operator never gets out in the dark and can't see the panel. So that light's always on. So the big question is when they check the truck out, the firehouse, and you're teaching them, they say, Chief, that light doesn't work. It's a brand new truck. And the answer is,
you don't have your pump on.
That's correct. It comes on when the pump is engaged. Okay? Because that'll be the first, it's so obvious that it's not on. They'll say, well, piece of crap, light's broke. No, it's not. Not supposed to be on. So the switch controls these and the ones on the other side for your panel. Your tank pump, because we have to have controls in the cab, is also controlled out here. Okay. A heater, you got a 2-speed heater in there, runs off the engine radiator. So you can, for all intents and purposes, during the winter, leave that switch on. When you get in the truck, of course we have power on now. That'll start to heat up. As she heats up, she'll start to blow hot air into your pump house.
Okay.
Or you can run it with the switch. And then again, you have your high pressure switches duplicated out here. Your high pressure pump and your volume pump are all the same. There's only one pump, but it has 2 sides. Okay. It has a volume side and a high pressure side. It's constantly available. So you can use high pressure, or you don't have to use high pressure. It's up to the operator. You can use just the volume side, or you can use just the high pressure side. Doesn't make any difference. There are 5 impellers on a common shaft. They're all spinning. They're all cooled by water. The difference is when this switch is off, there is only cooling water going through that line to keep those impellers cool. Some water, if you open up your booster line, some water would come out, but not a whole lot. Nothing it comes out. When you kick that in, then we open a valve that sends fire water into those other impellers. And that's when you get your high pressure. And then high pressure foam, because it's only on and off on these systems. You either get it or you don't. It's a set. There's no setting to adjust that. It's either on or off. Okay. And then water level, foam level, there'll be 2 separate fills up there. They'll be both marked. One will say water, one will be foam. It is Class A only on this truck, and they're not to be mixed. So I don't care what happens. If you have the big tank car fire and you need Class B foam, you say, well, we'll just dump it in. No, there is no Class B foam. It is Class A only. If you need B foam, you can dump it in your water tank and pre-mix it. You can use an inline inductor on the outside, but you can't put it in that tank. You can always do it once. And then you'll spend the rest of the next week cleaning it out as gels. It's Class A only. This is the control for the deck gun. Okay? And then these are your regular discharge. Everything is color-coded. So discharge 1 is white. It's white here. And then the drain will be white down here, this part. Okay? So there's a drain for everything. All you got to do is lift them up. Okay? You have pump cooling and engine cooling. These are just small auxiliary lines. All they do is recirculate water. A lot of apartments I run into, they leave these open. They say, well, it'll help keep the engine cool. Well, first of all, you shouldn't hardly ever need it. But if you leave it open and your engine overheats, you don't have any emergency cooling power. You've already gone past your emergency. See, my recommendation, and truly it's only a recommendation, is you leave them closed till you need them. Then it gives you a few seconds of cooling ability, and then if it doesn't cool, then you're going to get a stop engine light. Okay? But if it's always open, by the time you get the high temperature warning on here, that's it. You're at the end. Pump cooling, all it does is recirculate some water from the tank back through the pump and back into the tank. If it's a hot day and you're running high RPM and you've used most of your water and you keep doing this, pretty soon you're going to overheat because now you're just recirculating warm water. This takes a small line to a separate heat exchanger up front and helps cool the engine. But, working with this equipment, most of the time it's because the pump operator fails to maintain control of the pump. They run the RPMs up too high, with little discharge, and this is all energy. Whenever that pump is spinning, there's energy, and that has to be dissipated somewhere. And you can burn them up, and that is not a warranty item. And we'll know. Now, you have to get them really hot to do that, but we certainly have a pump repair section here that has seen a few of them. If you can bend that shaft, you're doing pretty good. But guys will let that water run down, keep that engine RPM up, and they forget about it. So you have discharge and intake gauges. Do you have pressure governors now? Or relief valves?
One of them, okay, the old one was a relief valve, but the newer one, the 01 or 02, whatever it is, it's got that to it.
Okay, so you're familiar with how they work?
Somewhat, but go ahead and show me.
Okay. This is an FRC pump boss. An FRC pressure governor always starts in pressure. So when you engage the pump and everything, you'll get this throttle ready light will be green. What that does is tell you everything here is electronically ready to operate, which means this throttle has taken over control of the engine. Okay. So the pressure light will be lit. You have both pressure and RPM mode. You have a silence button, a menu, and a preset. And this is just kind of like the old Vernier throttles, except it's all electronic. We get guys occasionally say, well, I really wish we had the old one. Well, we can put one on here, but it's all electronic. It'll look like an old one, but it's a connection instead of a cable. So it doesn't matter anymore. Everything's electronic. Your RPM will be up here. You're going to read your pressures over here, and this will be your message center. You have your 4 warning lights. You have both check engine and stop engine. And what I tell people is when this one lights up, they're not kidding. These have reached their maximum, and you'll see it. It'll go from yellow to red. So the operator should be able to, if the engine was to overheat, this yellow column would switch to red, and then they need to take notice, and the alarm goes off. That alarm is adjustable. So typically these are set about like high water temps running around 220, I think is what's standard. If you want to make it 200. See the booster reel indicates with foam. That's your only discharge with foam. Okay. So if you need foam, you got to run through the booster line.
It won't go through the nozzle.
Oh no, it will.
Okay.
But typically when you're standing here,
misunderstand.
typically when you're standing here, this is the only regular discharge with foam.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, it'll go through there. And remember, when it's on for the booster line, it's
0.5%.
no, and it's also what?
Also on for the front.
Also on the front. It's all water, all foam. Because a lot of people say, gee, I want. Now, if you want water and foam, then you have to just pull a different discharge. Okay. So if you have to rinse something over here, but foam something over there, you just can't do it through the same system when it's in foam.
Yes, okay.
Probably don't have one of these. These are fairly new. These are not only are they air powered, but they're automatic. So this has 3 positions. It's in off now. It has manual, which is that, and then it has automatic when the green light is on. And what that has is a sensor inside the pump. When it's below about 20 psi, it will sense that there's no water in there, no pressure, and it will kick in and it'll make that sound. So there's no environmental hazard anymore. There's no oil on the ground. There's nothing but air comes out. It will. The other advantage of this is if you remember your older primers with oil, that they have a time limit on how far you can run them. Typically, if it's no more than 30 seconds, they have to stop. And, well, this puppy, you can run it all the way back to Trenton if you want. It won't help it, but it won't. There's no time lapse, which means you can make more of a pull, and you can certainly make more of a pull laterally. So you could go 60 feet to a pond
I can draft 60 feet.
Well, no. You can pull laterally. You can pull laterally 100 feet if you want. It's just going to take time. Pulling is always limited, no greater than 33 feet vertical. That's the practical limit of atmospheric pressure. But if you were at a bridge and you had to drop 2 sections, then the problem with it was you always had to stop after 30 sections. You burn the primer motor up and your water would be halfway up. Well, this you can just leave on. It'll just continue to prime. The other thing it'll do, do you work off drop tanks much? You can leave it in automatic. Now, if it's a long time between dumps, you'll probably want to shut it off. But if your operator was doing something, the tank was set up and the tanker was coming, he can just hit automatic. It'll now immediately start doing that because there's nothing hooked up, but it's just spinning the turbine and it's just dropping air. And once the water hits the tank, she'll pick it right up and you should read positive pressure with 1 tube in the water, probably within 10 seconds, she'll be picked up. If anything happens, like somebody grabs one of these or opens the deck gun, and they do it quick, and they create that air bubble, that primer will kick on instantly and try to get that air out of that pump.
On automatic.
Yep. Now the one reason it says prime on there, if the last time they used the truck they left pressure in that pump house, obviously the sensor says I don't have to kick on, because you can get an air bubble or a water bubble, because remember, a volute is round. So all that always goes to the top. Well, that's when you can hit prime. Guys will say, well, now it's not working. Well, hit it a couple of times because the sensor is sensing, yeah, there's pressure, because maybe they didn't drain the pump or they ran a wet pump. There's just enough sitting there to where the primer sensor says we're okay. But you just spin it. The other thing is that primer is mounted vertically, so it drains automatically. Okay? The only thing is during the winter, you have to have a dry pump, and then they say to spin this for 15 seconds, because we still have to be able to pull air from the pump.
Is that with the petcock open so that you can drain that pump?
No, well, no, you want your pump to be dry.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, your main drain and everything.
Right.
Because what happens is there's still a small line that comes from the top of the volute, goes to the primer. Well, that's where it draws air, and then of course at some point it draws air and water, and then it draws water. Well, that loop, sometimes we can't get drained all the way till you spin the primer.
Okay.
But if you run a wet pump during the winter, all you're doing is pulling water through that line. So you just hold it. This is the warning. That's why the warning is there.
That's fine.
That would be the freezing hazard with it. Otherwise, once it hits the primer, it's a vertical tube. The water hits it, she drains right up. There's no drain on it. It's automatically. It's just a vertical tube that's open at the bottom. Once it spins through the turbine, it just drops to the ground. But if you run it's kind of like, I know when I was up in North Dakota, we had to drain everything and run air through them, and same thing here.
Okay.
Get the pump dry, so kind of the last thing you do, shut your main drain, shut your drains before they leave the firehouse, spin that for 10 seconds. That makes sure that's
Is
just
that
air in
what's
there.
dripping out down there?
Yeah, because I opened the drain. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your main drain is up underneath. So for the most part, leaving it there is okay. It really is. The preset, are you familiar with the preset?
No.
Okay. All pressure governors allow you to have one preset number built into the system. Most cases, they use their pre-connects. And what that allows you to do is set one pressure that when the operator comes out, gets the thing running, he hits preset and it goes to that pressure. And it stays there and maintains that as long, if you keep opening up more hose lines, it'll maintain that until it runs out of water. Okay? Well, you're probably running at 150 on your pre-connects. Set it at 150. Now, of course, the problem is if you open up something down here and it doesn't need 150, it's going to try to get to 150, which is going to rev up. So you have to gate these. Or in some cases, if it's that big of a fire, the preset will cut out at some point when you start doing this, and then it just forgets. But you only get one check.
What is the preset set at?
Nothing. No, we don't ever touch them because we don't know what they're set at. Because if we touch them, it sets it.
Okay.
And I don't want to set it because then you may get up there and maybe 30 pounds. That doesn't do any good. You'll get it up there when you get them up to the pressure you determine. Hold preset, and then it sets it. So your operator can come out of the cab, set everything up, pull the tank, or that's the refill, hit the tank button, hit preset, boom, ready to go.
Doesn't have to mess with anything. Now that's helpful if both those lines are identical. So if they're both, let's say, 200 feet of 1.5 inches with the same type of nozzle, that's where that helps. If they're different, one would be 250 or 200 feet and one's 350, well, those are different pressures. So now the preset you have to make, you being the department, has to figure out what that pressure is. And of course, as you spin this, the numbers on the dial will go up quickly. The faster you spin it, the quicker they're going to spool up, but the engine always follows behind slowly, so it never jerks up. So you can spin this all you want. The number will go up quickly, and the faster you spin it, the more numbers it skips. So it'll go pound by pound by 5 by 5 by 10, you know. But the engine will crawl behind it to make sure there's not an overpressure. Okay? And then the red button is like normal. Yep. This will also detect, an FRC governor also detects both intake and suction. Intake and discharge. So if you take in water from another pumper, it will compensate and throttle down to take care of that incoming pressure. It will also go into low water mode. If you exceed the capacity of the system, it'll get nasty. It starts flashing, it'll give you a warning, low water and all that, and then you need to do something. If, after I think it's 40 seconds, if it doesn't get, that explains it because they're actually hooked up like at a bridge, okay. And they'll show you how that can continue to pull that water, which means there's a lot of rural America, they use creeks, they park on a bridge. They have to drop 20 feet of hose. Okay.
So that's on the Trident website?
Yep.
Trident Air?
I think it's Trident Air Products. Yeah.
Okay.
If you Google a Trident Air Primer, it'll come up. And FRC, Fire Research Corp.com, I think is what it is, and they have the videos on the governors. Okay. And they're the better governor in the industry, the best in the industry. So your deck gun, because it's a 3-inch valve, is controlled by an electric switch, and this one is set up to open or close on a single push. So you hear that valve opening. So you can also preset this. We typically try not to do that. So you can stagger it. So one push takes it halfway. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. Typically, we just leave them open and closed, especially on a deck gun. Most people don't run them halfway or whatever. And then you have the electric deck gun. So this is kind of the same setup. Most of it's single push button. You also have a radio remote control in the compartment, I noticed. Take that up. And of course you can control it from that panel, and then you have to open that valve there to get water. Okay, and that's something to remember during the winter, is that just in case when you get back, you should always open that valve. If water ever got into that tube, leaked through, it's also the highest point on the pump, so that lets air in at the highest point, and that really drains stuff. That really helps push the water out. And then, of course, this also has auto park on it. So this is the easiest one to show. You just hit park, and then your folks are just going to have to get used to just let her go. She'll find itself. And guys say, well, gee, it's going around. Well, it has to find center. It's 0 point, and then it'll go back to where it belongs. So if you're in a hurry, you do have to give it a minute or two before you know. But that's all you have to do, though, is push the button.
I might do that 2 or 3 times just to watch it.
Oh, just to watch it. No, you're not. No. I think that happens frequently. Your folks just have to get used to it, that it's automatic. Nobody can explain why it does it except TFT, and we never bother to call it. This is the way they program it. And then it'll unlock itself and put it right back down. And if that's up, your door jar won't come in. You also have a remote control, radio remote. It's in that compartment.
And that's the one where I can walk around.
Yeah. Should you go 300 feet away? I think it's worth it. And that's it. I'd like to make it tougher, but.
Does it know where I am, or will it let me shoot myself with it?
Oh no, it'll let you shoot yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it will go where you point it.
Okay.
And of course, the big thing with that is the problem with all deck guns is you're here operating it, and the fire's over there. You can't see anything. So, and we often tell people this, we can put a man on the moon, we know exactly where he is, but a guy still has to climb to the top of a 100-foot aerial ladder to find where that water's going. And it's the same thing here. The other advantage of this is if it is a hazardous material situation, where there's a vapor cloud or something with threat of an explosion, you have to cool the tank. You can virtually set the truck up, and I realize it would be a great loss, but hopefully it's insured. But then you could walk away with a beach chair 300 feet away, and you're in the safe area, and you can run your monitor. Now, you can't open and close from out there. You have to do that from the truck.
Okay.
But once the gun is running,
Then I can walk.
yeah, you could set it up to protect you do agriculture up there, you do anhydrous. Well, if you had to drop an anhydrous cloud, by putting water on it, it forces it to the ground. But you don't want to be anywhere near it. You could set that on wide fog, hit the thing that's leaking, and of course now you got anhydrous. But
Can I operate the fog and the screen?
oh yeah,
Right there?
yep. Everything's duplicated.
Okay.
It's it's exactly that control panel there.
Oh, wow.
Here's your pattern control here.
Okay. How long does this last?
Oh gosh, a while.
Okay.
There's
Does it got-
batteries in it. Yeah, you get a low battery indication.
Okay.
I mean, these go.
Does this recharge, or do I have to plug it
No,
in, or do I have to
think
change
these are
batteries?
I think this one is battery powered. Yeah. One looks like 4 AA's.
Oh, okay.
So keep some at the firehouse.
Yeah.
And so that means this can last as long as you can get water into it. But this could be a truck that in some cases of a hazardous material spill, this is the one you have to, I hate to say sacrifice, but you may have to use it because it can function. You run a line into it and you can control it with that deck gun from a distance, which is certainly an advantage, but even at a house fire, the fact that you can get to the other side of the truck. Because we have run into firefighters that believe, the pump panel's got to be facing the house, and they'll go by a house fire, and then they'll turn around, and you don't. Really, it works on both sides.
Yes, sir.
And so if the house fire is over there, yeah, it may be less convenient for you to see. You just grab the remote, just walk around to the front of the truck and run that pump. So this is virtually, almost, in a lot of cases, a single-person operation. You can dump your whole tank through that deck gun, put out a house fire, while the rest of the troops are coming. You don't have to sit idly by and wait. And while you're doing that, you can stretch that booster line at 100 gallons a minute, hit your high pressure side, doesn't affect the volume side. Now you've got a 100 gallon per minute attack line in your hand that you can sit and wait for something to happen.
While I'm producing with that.
Yep. That capacity has nothing to do with that booster line. Until you run out of water.
Then I would go.
Then it's equal everywhere, no matter who's pumping. Once you're out of water, you're out of water.
Yeah.
So, but you can do that. So you could come upon there's say you leave 2 folks in the truck. Hell, you can get a shot at it with the bumper turret. You can pull up, open the bumper turret, let it run, get after it, get the deck gun up, finish her up.
But I can't run. The only one that I can run is that one with the remote.
That's
I can't
correct.
run the bumper.
Bumper turret's just a joystick in the cab.
That's just okay.
Yep, just joystick in the cab. Yeah. Yeah. But if you were able to get a straight shot at it or something,
Get after it.
you could. Barn, somewhere you
Right.
got room, and you had a little something going. Yeah. The only thing I'd caution is if it's a big fire, don't waste it on the bumper turret. Get to the big turret. Don't waste anything coming out at that flow. That won't put anything out.
What is the flow on the front of this?
Usually up to about 100 and some gallons a minute.
And what's the flow on that one?
This one, how big's your fire pump?
This is 1250?
Yeah, that'll be a 1250 then.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll take every bit of water you can give it. That'll throw a stream of water from here. We can pretty much wash cars on the interstate.
Let's
With the wind
find
out
out.
there. Yeah. We can, no. This is
Wow, that
fire
was a
pump.
quick no, wouldn't it?
And that'll be something that you'll want to teach your folks, is when you get it up there, no matter how you're taking water and drafting, or you have hydrants.
No, we don't.
Okay, so you'll be drafting from a tank or something. Show them that, yeah, you can run the gun, and you can also run the booster line.
Okay.
You gotta push that button,
Okay.
high pressure. And that is a valve that'll operate no matter what the pump's doing. Okay, run air through that, and it'll come, it takes a while,
Yeah,
but it'll do it. it'll do it. Okay. And if you end up having trouble, you're hearing your compressor running all the time, well, you make sure they shut this valve off. Yeah, because she's straight chassis here. Okay. And then this is high pressure drain. You got to make sure during the winter you get all that stuff open. Okay. Because there's always water. Remember, there's always water on the high pressure side. Because a centrifugal fire pump is water cooled. Okay. So we don't send much through there. You know, like if you use a boost line, you get like you know, there'd be some water coming out. But once you get high pressure, it's a whole different story. Okay. It's one of these.
But when I drain it,
Drain everything.
and I drain the air, and I poke the air at it,
Yep.
not on the auto side, but on the regular prime side, then all of that's going to be out of it, yes.
All of that. Everything should be blowing dry.
And that as well? Or is there
Yeah, if
something
you poke drain. No. That gun drain's right here.
Okay.
No, everything's got to have a drain. Now your front bumper turret has got an auto drain on it, and so do your crosslinks. I think they put them in there. They may look at it. So that valve is always open until you put pressure to it.
But then it
At
closes.
about 5 pounds, she closes. There's just a little spring
Like
on
a
the
spring.
diaphragm. Yeah.
Okay.
There's just a little spring diaphragm in it. So if it ever keeps running,
Doesn't that
sometimes there's a
diaphragm
piece
like
of
crap
crap
in there?
Yeah. So what guys will say when you shut this off, they'll say, shit, there's water running out the bottom of the truck. Well, there should be. And that's how it stays dry.
Okay.
Because it only closes when there's pressure.
Okay. But right now it's open.
It's open. Oh yeah, there's no pressure in the line. So that's
So
that's
if
why
I
it
get
comes
crap
out.
in there, how do I?
Oh, you can just-
How do I get into it?
Usually you can just stick your finger up. You can just stick your finger in there, or you can unscrew it,
Okay.
pull it out. And they're pretty cheap if one gets chained up there.
Okay.
They're not. And then of course this disconnects here. Take that off.
Okay.
And you just got to unplug it back here.
Okay.
And you just lift that whole thing.
The whole head
Yep.
comes off?
Yep, the whole thing comes off.
Okay.
And it will only let you put it back down in this position.
Okay.
And then these are your manual controls if for some reason the electric's crapped out.
Okay.
And once they get used to operating it, it'll be like, oh my goodness.
Right on.
Because we've heard some stories about small departments putting out car fires. They never get out of the cab. You know, on the smaller trucks, they'll go to brush fires. They never get out of the cab. Drive around, run out of water, and leave. The only thing they do is adjust the air conditioning. It gets really hot, they just turn the air
Yeah.
conditioner. Well, let's walk around then and show you. Now this is a hinge door, so you have to take all these off. You got to hinge that, and just like that. Okay, get in there. You'll be plugged up in there. Those are your pre-connect discharge. Of course, it goes up. Your foam flush and controls are up in here. If you need to do any of that, it should work just fine. And it's a pretty clean build. Shouldn't have, too many problems. If anything fails, yeah, really the only thing that can, if something were to fail on the pump boss, we don't fix them, we exchange them.
Okay.
So you just unplug everything, unscrew it, we send you a brand new one.
Okay.
Don't get into the messing with it. Even we don't fix them. We send them back to the factory. There are transducers that read off the pump. That could be a failure point. They've been known to fail just because of, their little things and they take a lot of abuse.
Right.
Other than that, it's just everything's just an unplug and send it right back. If you can't draft, let me shut this in. One thing that the pressure governor does, which is all pressure governors, that when they're in pressure mode, they're looking for pressure to operate to release the throttle. When you're drafting, there is no pressure. Okay? So if you do have trouble, we tell you just hold that button and go to the RPM mode. What it does, it takes that pressure transducer out of the system. Okay? Now it's operating just like a regular throttle. Okay? And once you get a draft, just hit pressure, just hold the button until that light lights and you're back ready to go. With the auto primer, it shouldn't happen, but it's physics. So in some cases it does happen. Because, it doesn't work. Just hold it in the RPM, and then that pressure transducer sitting on the pump is taken out of the circuit. Now it's not looking. Now the throttle is released. If that pressure transducer fails, what you have now is just a standard throttle. Now you just read off your gauges. Okay, that's the default. People say, well, I won't be able to run the worst case. You go up and you run the foot throttle with the cruise control. You always kind of have a backup of it. Okay, but if anything happens with this, just call. We'll overnight one. The company will overnight one. And just
switch them out.
Okay.
There's no getting in there with prongs and doing anything with it. But that's pretty much how it should run. Then the radiators are your covers are here. Bruce said the chief is taking care of the hose, I guess, that you were asking about. Just ordered the hose. Suction hoses, bag of stainless steel, nuts and bolts. So as you add stuff to the truck, use the stainless so they don't rust. They asked for some extra loom.
Okay.
I'm just going to stick that in there. Strainer for the suction hose. This is your fold down ladder. To get up to the top, just merely fold that down.
Okay.
That allows you easy access to the top. This is your dump valve. Works just like every other dump valve. It's got a latch on it. You have to unlatch that, be able to move the main handle. When you do that, over here, you go there. It's got a latch into this.
Okay.
That's a lock. You got to make sure when that handle is moved that when they go to close that, if this pin is up in here, they're going to bend this.
Okay.
And it's going to take a lot of effort, so they need to remember what it does is keeps that valve from flopping closed when the water's rushing out.
Okay.
Okay, but that pin will latch down on this when it moves.
Okay.
See, and you don't, so they have to release that before they put her back up. Then the swivel dump merely opens up and then swivels to either side. And you should travel with this in the up position because you're covering your tail lights. So, and you'll see that there's a taller bolt here that latches into.
Okay.
And that just sits there.
Wonderful.
It can do it on the other side, but the ladder's over there. So.
Yep.
And then we have a drop tank, raise and lower. So that's just an electric switch.
And that's for this thing right here, yes?
Now the cover for the tank is in a box in the compartment.
Okay.
So you folks, we don't put them on because we don't want to damage them when they come in. So these lights in this system are also wired to the door jar warning. If this light is flashing, that door jar will come on.
Wonderful.
So they would tell you that. Not that you probably wouldn't notice. That's the empty tank moving because there's no fabric on it right now. Generator, it's all ready to go. Circuit breaker panel is there. And of course you're just using your outlets on here.
Okay.
All the lights on the truck are 12 volt. They're all LED, so anything coming off of there is 120 volt or 240 either one.
Okay.
There's your booster wheel. That would be your folding tank cover or liner. There's your booster reel. We've got, of course, secured now so it doesn't vibrate while you're driving. And then you can leave that. Now the driver will have to understand that when they're going down the road, if they're pumping and rolling with that door up, they're going to get a door jar warning.